They're talking rebuild in New York / New Jersey / wherever the hell the Jets are these days. East Rutherford. $50 million of salary dumped this offseason. Nick Mangold, gone. Eric Decker, gone. Everybody, gone. Darrelle Revis, no more Revis Island. So we're talking full-on rebuild here for the Jets preview, our third installment of the 2017 NFL season preview. So Brendan Albert is here, and unfortunately one of the 32 teams is the New York Jets, and we have to talk about them.
We certainly do. I mean, what you got to think about that is, every year there's going to be guys drafted. And, you have teams like the Browns, you have teams like the Jets who consistently are in that top 5 to 10 range of picks, and they are in the NFL. So, yes, as Adrian said it perfectly, we do have to talk about them.
Well, if there's a team that needs to tank, it's the Jets. They need a quarterback desperately. And I'll tell you what right now, I don't know how you feel about this. I got the Jets going 1-15. I think it's a dumpster fire. I think they might be the worst team in the NFL. I think they might be worse than the Browns.
Oh, yeah. I don't think there's a question, at least in my mind. When I look in Cleveland, I at least can somewhat see the light at the end of the tunnel. Now, the light at the end of the tunnel for Cleveland is a 35-year-old tunnel. So it's a very, very, very long stretch there. But I can see things that Cleveland's got going on. They got pretty good running back, got some youth at receiver. Defense is obviously improving. The Jets just blew it all up and cleaned house. Now, with that $50 million in cap room, this is going to be something that we kind of saw a couple years ago. If you remember when Rex Ryan brought in guys like LT and Bart Scott and brought a lot of big names in. The problem is what are you bringing it into, and who's leading the charge? Because I think, Adrian, both you and I fully expect Todd Bowles is going to be gone after this year. And not all that's his fault, but yeah, that's great. But who's going to be doing the pitching? And if I'm a free agent, what am I joining? Right now, there's nothing going on in New York. So maybe that's appealing to me to kind of set the culture from day one. But at the same time, in the NFL, I want to know I'm going to a stable locker room, not I'm going to a question mark. And that's really what the New York Jets are.
Yeah, it's like the Sixers situation for all those years where they were tanking purposely, not winning games purposely, and nobody wanted to come to Philadelphia. It was a struggle to sign guys. And even this offseason, you had to overpay for J.J. Redick to have him come here. So it's going to be the same thing in New York. And they're going to start – God, who is their starter? Josh McCown? Is that
probably?
Okay. I'm not a Christian Hackenberg guy. I think he stinks. But to me, it doesn't make any sense to start McCown. I mean, I would try and see what you got in Hackenberg, right? Right?
Yeah. No. I'm in the same spot. I mean, look, if you're a Jets fan, God bless you, first and foremost. Now, if you are a Jets fan, here's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping we split the season in half. We say, Petty, you get half the season. Hackenberg, you get half the season. McCown, you're always going to be the second-string guy. We don't care if we win 1 game or if we win 5 to 8 games. We don't care. We just need to give these guys a shot. And if they stink, you know what? The rest of our team stinks too, and that's fine.
Yeah, this year should be about to see what you have moving forward. What kind of pieces do you have? We know this team isn't good. Everybody knows this. It's not a surprise, all right? So I wouldn't start McCown at all, but I guarantee you, I mean, that's what they're going to do, and that's what teams do for whatever reason. They start the veteran, and then whatever. But how are you supposed to know what you have at quarterback if you're not going to start them?
Yeah, and and to be fair, Adrian, let me kind of explain this for our viewers. The NFL coach, his job is to keep his own job. Okay, like as simple as it is, that's his job, to keep his own job. And you know what typically doesn't keep his job? Rookie quarterbacks. So typically that's why we see guys will say, you know what, let's bring out McCown, let's bring out the starter, we'll let him get some snaps, we'll kind of let the rookie grow, and then when the rookie's ready, we'll bring the rookie in, and then we'll run the ball 60 to 70% of the time, and then we'll kind of drop that run percentage off as he gets comfortable in the NFL. So traditionally speaking, That's why you see these starter or your veteran quarterbacks and the rookie comes in later in the year, is because the NFL coach is making sure the rookie's ready, and in turn, he's making sure he doesn't get his ass fired at the end of this year. Now, that said, Todd Bowles, he's going to get fired this year. There's no way, in my opinion, he can keep his job, and that's really unfortunate for him. So that's why if I'm management, I'm going down to Todd Bowles and I'll say, look, the only thing that's going to keep you from getting fired by week 2 is if you play the rookies. The only chance you have is listening to exactly what we have, and we're going to shove our hands so far up your ass that if you open your mouth, you can see our fingertips because you're going to be our puppet, and we're going to play all the rookies and the young guys this year. I think that's the right move for the Jets. The unfortunate thing is Todd Bowles is going to be their puppet master. He's going to get fired by the end of the season, but he's going to do exactly what he's told to stay paid as long as possible.
Now, just something I thought of just off the top of my head. Maybe you'd agree with this, maybe you wouldn't. But, okay, so you're the Jets, and we just talked about no free agent is going to want to come there. As a coach, who's going to want to come there? Todd Bowles has 2 years left on his contract. Do you maybe potentially let it play out this year and next year?
No.
Or you just cut it out and you just see what you can get from a coaching standpoint? I mean, yeah. I think he's going to get fired. I agree with you. But it's just something to think about because this team's going to go, what? 1-15, 2-4, 3-13, whatever, top 3 worst team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So who are we going to be able to coax in?
Well, I mean, what you're probably going to see is you're going to see one of 2 situations. You'll see a young coach who realizes, hey, there's only 32 jobs of these on the world.
Yeah.
So even if it is the Jets, there's only 32 jobs in the world. So, okay, like everyone can – let's just – both you and I love to kind of poke fun at the Jets. They're still in the NFL, so it's still an elite-level job. So there's still going to be people wanting to take it. So one of 2 things is going to happen. You're either going to have a young guy just be really excited to take it, or you're going to see an older guy like Pat Shurmur, a guy who's done a pretty nice job there as the offensive coordinator for the Vikings, or someone else is going to take a job with the hopes of maybe he can also kind of get a little more say in free agency. Having $50 million in cap room is pretty appealing, especially when you could have the first overall pick this upcoming year too. So that could be coming a little appealing for an older coach, but I'm sure in his negotiations he's probably going to say, hey, we want to make sure our voice is going to be heard loud and clear when it comes to negotiations, player signings, and things like that.
Yeah, the reason why I bring that up, again, is Sixers example. All they could get was Brett Brown. That was it. And obviously, I mean, Brett Brown, we'll see what he pans out to. But at the time, I mean, everybody, who the hell's Brett Brown? So that's the only reason why I bring that up. All right. I guess we'll move on to running backs now. A signing that they shouldn't have made last year, but they did. Matt Forte, 3.7 yards per carry. And then Walter Pau comes in there, and he kills it for them. So I would think he's the back and not Forte. But we'll see how it goes.
I mean, I can't imagine how awkward it must have been the first day that Matt Forte walked into the Jets camp and he's looking around. He's saying, oh, okay, well, Marshall's gone. Oh, Decker's gone. Oh, Mangel's gone. Oh, Pace is gone. And now he's realizing, shit, I'm the vet on this team and I've only been here for 2 years. That's not a good sign. So I kind of feel for him there. But again, when we think about the future of the Jets, Blair Powell's got to be the guy. That said, I don't think his future in the NFL is ever going to be a bell cow. I think he's going to be someone who's going to, get 12 to 15 carries and probably 3 or 5 receptions. So he probably starts the year at running back, but I mean, he's not necessarily going to get a ton more touches than Forte. I still think the touches will be even. I just think more opportunity is going to be given to Powell until he shows that he can't handle it.
I'll tell you what, though, it would not surprise me if Powell and Forte are your top 2 leaders in receptions for the Jets this season. That's how bad the receivers are.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a stretch. They usually, aside from Washington this year, which did a similar thing when they lost their number 1 and their number 2 receivers, the only difference is their number 3 receiver last year was Quincy Akinwa, and I think everyone kind of says, oh, he had a nice season, not he's a nice player. There's a little bit of a difference there. So no one's really confident that he's a number 1. I mean, Robbie Anderson, Temple Made, got to give a shout-out to our man, too.
Sure.
But Robbie's in a spot where he can go in and potentially win a starting job and be a number 1 receiver in the NFL. So he actually was my guy I circled here for our fantasy listeners. Robbie's probably guy in your 15th, 16th round when you're looking for your fifth receiver, sixth receiver on the board. He's worth taking a flyer on because he's probably going to get 70-plus targets because the Jets are going to be losing by a lot. They're going to try to throw the ball. He doesn't have a lot of competition around him. He could be a nice fifth or sixth receiver on your fantasy team. But, yeah, as you said, Adrian, I wouldn't be surprised if Powell and Forte lead the team in receptions.
I mean, think about their receivers and who they have. They have nobody. Anunwa, he's their best guy, jack of all trades type of guy. Robbie Anderson is in his second season. He was undrafted from Temple. He's their deep threat. And then after that on the roster, you got a pair of rookies. You got Ardarius Stewart from Alabama. You got Chad Hansen from Cal. So you got four guys with three of those guys have less than 2 years experience. Two of them are rookies. So I don't know what they're going to do. And even if you look at the tight end spot, they don't have any tight ends. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, they picked him up. He's been a huge disappointment since he's been drafted. They did pick up Jordan Leggett, but that was a fifth rounder. So I don't know who's going to be catching the ball for the Jets.
Yeah. And you're not wrong here, Adrian. I mean, that's why really – when you're looking at any of these receivers, at least from a fantasy value, they're all question marks. I mean, I would take Robbie the highest because I have the most confidence in him. I think he's the most NFL polished to do it all. I'm not a big fan of taking rookies in a situation where it's not at least a stable quarterback. So I agree with you, Adrian. I mean, it's a bad receiving core. But, really the Jets, they're in that all-in mindset of, hey, we're going to tank. We're going to be terrible, and we're going to invest heavily in free agency next season. And the one thing I will say, and I always talk about this with my guy Tony, the worst thing you can be in sports is a contender because it means you're not good enough to win a championship, but you're not bad enough to truly rebuild. I kind of respect the fact that what the Sixers did and what the Jets are doing now of just saying, you know what, we're going to suck. We're going to worry. We're going to build up through the draft and kind of move on from there. So I think that's the Jets' mindset, and I don't think it's wrong either.
Perfect mindset. This is the draft to tank and get your quarterback. They're going to get Sam Darnold, whatever guy they want. They're going to get him. They're going to be the worst team in football. I got them at 1-15. It's a terrible team.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're going to be in the same Darnold sweepstakes. The only thing that might kind of hurt them, quote, quote, is if you look at teams like Cleveland and you look at teams like Buffalo, which we did a preview on already, guys. Buffalo has 2 1s next year. Cleveland has a lot of picks next year. So let's say, for example, the Jets somehow end up at 2. And let's say, I don't know, a team like the Jags or the Vikings or someone lands up at 1 that maybe isn't the worst team in the league, but they have a horrific year. You could see the Bills or you could see the Browns with more ammo in their arsenal move up to then draft Darnold, where the Jets don't really have a ton of picks and a lot of stuff to burn to move up in the draft. So hence, this is exactly why the Jets said, no. We can't be bad. We have to be horrific to be confirmed that we will be the number 1 pick because we don't have the ammo to move from 3 to 1.
By the way, I was just going through all of my team rankings. So not only the Jets, the worst receiving core in the league, the only unit that I had ranked worst are the Browns running backs. That's it. So Jets receivers are pretty bad. Really, really bad.
Yeah, pretty bad. I mean, I would probably push back a little bit on that, Adrian. I actually think the Browns running backs is not certainly good. I would say they're probably bottom 3rd in the league. But I think when you have a guy like Isaiah Crowell, he's probably at best a rotational back in the NFL, but he's a starter in Cleveland. Yeah. They have a nice offensive line there in Cleveland. I like him.
Well, the O-line helps the running backs out.
Oh, without question. But vice versa, quarterbacks also help the receivers. And in New York, when you have a bad quarterback situation, receivers are going to get worse.
Yeah. And they got rid of their guy. They don't have Decker. They don't have anything. By the way, I include tight ends in the receivers too. So it's like, it's a little bit of everything. So moving on. So the offensive line now, they're going through an adjustment period as well. So you're replacing your left tackle. Ryan Clady's gone. So they tried that experiment. Didn't really work out. Now they're bringing in another guy that's injury prone, Kelvin Beachum. Always a guy that was kind of underrated in Pittsburgh. Hasn't been able to stay healthy recently. At center, no more Nick Mangold. They go to Wesley Johnson now. And on the right side, at right tackle, instead of Bruno Giacomini, they have now Ben Ijalana. So a bunch of new guys on the O-line. We'll see how they fare. So it's always been kind of a strong spot for them, especially with Mangold always there. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, usually when you lose a veteran, Joe Thomas is another guy I kind of think of in the same breath as a Nick Mangold, of a guy in the offensive line who's one voice, makes sure everyone is in unison, working together. That's a big blow. And the Jets' offensive line last year, they're probably in the bottom third, not the worst in the NFL, but certainly nowhere near a great situation either. James Carpenter was the only guy who was actually had a pretty good year. Last year, he only let up 2 sacks, which is pretty darn good. Now, that said, everything's a lot easier from a guard when you have a steady play at center next to you, when you have steady play of the guy next to you. When Wesley Johnson came in relief of Nick Mangold, he didn't exactly light it up either. So it wasn't like, oh, thank God we can move on from Nick Mangold because Wesley Johnson here, he's a stud. Far from it. So, when we're looking at things in New York, offensive line is not great. Carpenter was good. He's probably one of the better guards in the NFL. I'd probably say he's a top 10 guard in the NFL. But everything else, they're all bottom 10 with the rest of their centers and tackle situations.
I do like Beachum if he can return to form. That's the thing, though. He hasn't returned to form since the ACL tear. So, that's like the Clady situation. Clady was always great, and then once he started getting hurt, never was able to regain that form. And now Clady's no longer on the roster. So, all right, so we go from O-line to D-line. D-line is obviously a position of strength, the biggest position of strength for the Jets, and actually one of the better units in the NFL. Yeah. So we'll talk about that now. I mean, Leonard Williams now entering his 3rd season. He's certainly a stud. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And they got Wilkerson.
Yeah,
studs.
I mean when you
studs.
Yeah, and Sheldon Richardson, he's not exactly a slappy either. I mean, They have 3 really good D linemen. All 3 of those D linemen are capable of being 10-sack guys, which is pretty rare to have in the NFL. So they have a very good defensive line. There was a whole bunch of rumors they were trying to move Richardson earlier. There was rumors last year they were trying to move Mo. And Leonard Williams, the Jets did the right thing when they drafted him. He wasn't exactly a position of need for them, but when that NFL draft came out, everyone said, hey, Leonard Williams is the best surefire pick. He was getting a lot of comparison to Aaron Donald, and I still think that's a very fair comparison. And he fell into the Jets' lap, and they said, we'll take him. Yeah, he was still. Yeah. So
I definitely agreed with that.
And I think they did the same things this year with Adams, where they took him. I mean, I think he was another solid player, and I think he's a nice pick. So with the D-line for the Jets, they're in a really good spot there. At least with those first 3, that probably puts them in the first third of the NFL. So probably a top 10 NFL D-line just based on those first 3.
All right, I'll tell you in a second where I had them ranked on the D-line. But linebacker. So they are attempting to move Sheldon Richardson to outside linebacker. What do you think? How's that going to play out? Do you think it's going to work? I don't know if he seems too big for the position. I don't know if he's going to be able to get – I don't know. I don't know if I like that.
Well, I mean, to be fair, the rationale is those three linemen we talked about are probably all 3 of them are probably more fits as DNs in a 3-4, which they run.
Oh, yeah.
None of them are truly nose guys. Mo is the biggest, and Mo probably, but the way the Jets are thinking about it is if we put Mo at the nose, then he's kind of wasted there. So pretty much the Jets' mindset was, okay, do we want to waste Mo playing the nose because he's a good pass rusher, but he's not going to get a lot of pass rush from coming at the nose, or do we want to see if we can get Sheldon to stand up? Now, here's the thing. Even though Sheldon is going to stand up and play a quote outside backer, he's going to rush 80% of the time. I mean, he's still coming off the edge, and they're just going to have Mo, instead of coming C gap, he's going to take B gap. So now Sheldon can still get the C gap angled at a normal DN to 4-3.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, are they going to have him rush angles almost like being a D end?
I would.
Yeah,
I mean, what I would do is I would probably move to like an angle front, and I would always just say, and now again, this is what my base is. Obviously, you're going to need to disguise it more often than this, but my base is I would always say, hey, if Sheldon's lining up on the right, the rest of our D-line, we're all angling one gap to the left, so now Sheldon can still come off and have a good angle. That's how I would do it. Of course, you'll disguise it and you'll do it different ways, but he's not going to drop to the flats. I mean, he'll drop into the flats and play coverage only because as a defensive coordinator, you have to disguise things and you can't make it obvious every time. But, I mean, he's going to rush. That's what he's going to do. I'm not sure how successful he's going to be. He is a very good athlete, but his best fit is going to be as a DN, not as an outside backer.
Yeah, I mean, I understand trying to get all those talents on the field at the same time. They're the three best players on the team, quite frankly. So is it better to have him rush as a 3-4 outside linebacker, or do you just rotate them all? I mean, that's a tough question to answer. Now, I do think he'll be able to rush, but I have my concerns when he has to drop back in coverage and stuff. I mean, he's not going to be able to do that.
Yeah, and that's fair, Adrian. I mean, I think, the simple train of thought is, hey, the best 11 guys play, and if Sheldon Richardson is one of your best 11 guys, which he is, he plays. You don't say, oh, well, he's our best. He's probably our fourth best guy, but he's only going to be on the field 40% of the time. That doesn't really make a ton of sense. I hear you. I think he's still a guy that potentially we could hear trade rumors going on about him. The problem is he does have some off-the-field history, and that is something that is in the NFL. So then if you're an NFL team, the value for him is a bit of a question mark, because if you go and trade a mid to late round pick for him and he gets another issue, he's suspended for anywhere from half the season to a year, well, then it's kind of all but forgotten, and he's got a contract coming up. So then it becomes, okay, so how do you negotiate this contract with this guy who can't get on the field or stay on the field?
Yeah, I could definitely see a trade happening. Wilkerson, the complaint for him last year was he came to camp overweight, looked a little slow last season, obviously signed that big contract. But now the Jets are going to stink. So what's the incentive for him to want to come into camp and be ready like he was 2 years ago?
Get paid. I mean, that's, sometimes
do you really blame him for the shit? Like it, because that's the complaint. He was slow. He was fat. He came in overweight.
Well, and here's the thing. Adrian, you and me were talking a little bit about this before we really came on here. He and all the Jets players went from polar opposites in coaching styles. When you go from Rex Ryan, who was loud, in your face, and Rex is a D-line guy and a D guy. So him and Mo were probably spending a lot of time together. So when Rex left, or Rex didn't have the opportunity to stay, he lost a lot of stability. He lost probably a big motivator every day in there, because not only was your D-line coach getting on your ass, the head coach was getting on your ass. Now, Coach Bowles, of course, you and me, Adrian, we're not in the locker room, so we don't know definitively what he's like. But he does come off very type B, very relaxed, very calm, cool, collected. And if you're someone who needs a foot up your ass to get motivated, Rex Ryan was definitely your guy. Todd Bowles doesn't really seem that. So, and the other thing we got to remember is it's easy to be motivated when you're winning. It's hard to be motivated when you stink. And that's what's going to happen with the Jets this year. So I am curious to kind of see how motivated Mo's going to be, what kind of shape he's going to come into. I assume as an NFL vet, he'll come in good shape and be a leader. But, so honestly, I can't completely blame him if he kind of struggles to get things in gear early.
Yeah. I mean, Bowles, that right from the beginning, he's just a guy that doesn't seem to have a demeanor of a head coach. He might be a great D coordinator and all that, but some guys just don't have it. I never understood why he was hired. I don't know. But moving on. All right, so let's talk about linebackers now. By the way, I looked up 3-4 defensive linemen. I have the Jets ranked as the second best unit out of the 3-4 D-lines. There's 15 defenses that play 3-4. Houston is number one. So you can imagine why Houston would be number one. So at Houston, Jets, then the Rams, then the Chargers, and then the Titans. That's how I did that.
So you still had them pretty high.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. All right, moving on, linebackers. Another release that they made that I forgot to mention, David Harris, one of the consistent players at linebacker for them. Now taking his spot will be, well, at least taking the reins for them, will be Darren Lee. He kind of struggled last year. We'll see what he does now in year 2.
Yeah, now, when we're looking at Darren Lee, I mean, in 2016, at least according to Pro Football Focus, which I'm a huge, huge fan of, he had the highest tackling efficiency of any rookie in 2016. So Darren Lee is certainly someone that you kind of can circle and say, hey, there might be a budding star here. We might be seeing something special here. So I can understand why they wanted to move on with a vet and give him the opportunity to get in. I think his skill set and his athletic over brute linebacker kind of style fits really well for what the football is in 2017. So I like him. I think he's probably going to be set in a situation to grow. And again, as we talked about it, if you have a good D-line in front of you, usually linebacker, your life's a little easier. So I like what Darren Lee has.
Yeah, he's got a lot of speed. He goes sideline to sideline. I wonder what he got rated last year from Pro Football Focus. I wonder if he's the guy I'm thinking of. There's somebody on the Jets that got like a 39. That wasn't good. I wonder if it was him. I got it up in front of me right now. Let's see. I think it was him. If it's not him, then I was thinking of the wrong guy.
Let's take a quick peek here. Well, and that's interesting too. You know, what the Jets did was they also traded Calvin Pryor. Now, to be fair, everyone pretty much knew, hey, Calvin Pryor's on the block once they went back-to-back picks with the safeties, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But when they made that move, they then brought in Dominic Davis. I think it's Dominic Davis. Can't remember his name. Anyway, linebacker from Cleveland. I know his last name is Davis. I'm forgetting his first name at this time. But they brought him in, and he's another younger guy. He's still under his rookie contract from Cleveland. Had a pretty good years when he was playing with the Browns. So that was certainly a wise move for the Jets. They kind of pretty much said, hey, we'll move one young guy for another young guy, especially because we're not going to play 3 safeties at the same time that are all pretty similar in style. So I like that move the Jets did.
Yeah, Demario Davis. Yeah, he's good. Darren Lee got 36.2. So that was his rating last year. Wow. But he didn't he got his snaps like limited, right? Because he
was a limited snap situation, big time.
Yeah, so that's not really a fair grade if he's limited and stuff. So, but the skill set's there. I mean, the modern day linebacker, he's got speed. He goes sideline to sideline. He can cover. So I think he's got those traits certainly. All right, so we can talk about the cornerback spot now. We can talk about the safeties. What were the Jets doing in the draft? Safety. Why? What?
I mean, here's the thing. You know, it depends on your train of thought. First, Jamal Adams was a stud. I mean, he was a
stud.
Safe pick. Boom, take him. Done. Right? I mean, I'm completely okay with that pick. And I'm gonna do this, Adrian, because I didn't. You brought up a great question. I'm gonna look up what the NFL draft was. I want to see who else was still on the board when the Jets made their picks this year.
Like another safety. Oh, they went back to back. Anyway, while you look that up, I will talk about Darrelle Revis and how they're going to replace him with Mo Claiborne. We'll see how Claiborne pans out this year. Never a favorite of mine while he was in Dallas, but did kind of have a solid year for them last year. So we'll see if he can rebound. So what are you finding there, Brennan?
So what I just found here, guys, and there's a couple people here that I kind of would have rather the Jets taken, looking back than
it sure is beautiful here, isn't it?
Dad, sorry, I got a commercial here.
On vacation.
So when I'm looking here, the couple people they could have taken over Marcus May was Dalvin Cook. I mean, he could have came in and been a starter for the Jets. Quincy Wilson, another guy that, you know, maybe who you think about, he was there. And then, of course, you have Sidney Jones. You know, a guy that obviously the Eagles had the opportunity to take because he wasn't there. I mean, all 3 of those guys I probably would have liked a little more than Marcus May. The one thing I will say is Jamal Adams is probably more of our if we close our eyes and imagine a strong safety, it's probably a little more of what he is. May is probably the hybrid between a strong safety and a free. He's not a true free safety. He's not a true Earl Thomas playing the single high look, but he does have that flexibility and skill set to do both. So I get the versatility and the appeal there, but to me, I probably would have rather used that pick on one of the corners that was still available or Dalvin Cook. That would be my move if I was the Jets.
I'm with you 100%. What are your thoughts on Claiborne?
So Mo Claiborne is another one of those guys that I think he was just a victim of the success of Anthony Brown in Dallas. You know, when Dallas had a great late pick, as much as Adrian I know is grinding his teeth right now to admit it, he had a great
season. Don't worry.
You know, for Dallas, he had a nice rookie year being a late round pick out of Purdue. So when the Cowboys had that success, they say, okay, well now our corners are a little more, you know, expendable. So when you sign a guy like Mo Claiborne, you're pretty much just saying, okay, you know, you'll be a stopgap guy, and hopefully we can go out and draft someone. Or if you have a great season, you're on a show me deal. Show us you can do it, and then we'll give you more than a one-year deal. I think for the Jets, it's a perfect opportunity just to kind of say, all right, let's just see what we got here. The interesting thing about Revis, one thing you want to talk about here is Darrelle Revis is still owed $6 million by the Jets. So Revis right now, if he wanted to play in the NFL, an NFL team would need to pay him $6 million in $1. They would need to pay him more than the $6 million he is previously owned by the Jets in order for him to be active by an NFL team this year. So it's probably unlikely that Revis is going to be signed by a team this year. But next season, so next offseason, I could see a team taking a flyer on him.
I did not know that. I did not know that you had to pay $6 million. See, I did a video. I was like, I ain't even picking him up, you know, just to pick him up for $3 million. I wouldn't even do that. And well, you got to pay $6.
Yeah, the deal is if a player is released before the end of his contract is paid, and because Revis's deal was a fully guaranteed deal, he still has money remaining on it. So what happens is that new NFL team has to raise whatever it is. In theory, it's supposed to say if this guy is good enough to be released, he still should have a shot, opposed to this guy saying, hey, you're not good enough, you're not going to get any money. It's something that's not really common because typically when guys get released, it's usually the NFL fully agrees. I think Revis is still talented enough, but not at $6 million.
Yeah, I agree. And, you know, some Eagles fans were like, well, you can just sign him just to mentor the young players. But the reports that I've always heard is that, well, he's kind of an asshole in the locker room. And the point you've made before on prior shows, I mean, it's not really like that in the NFL, is it? Everyone wants to put food on their plate.
Here's the thing. I mean, you know, yes, on the surface, it plays well to say, oh, yeah, the team brought me in here. I'm going to be a vet. I'm going to mentor the young guys and do that. But I still am waiting for the day where a vet says, you know what, rookie, you've earned the job. You can take it over me. I mean, even look when Romo had to choke down his tears and admit that, you know, Prescott took it. Yeah. Romo didn't want to do that, right? Romo didn't want to, be a vet. No, that's a reason why Romo said, hey, I'm okay moving forward here. Vets don't want to mentor people. Vets want to play. They're playing the NFL, and they want to play for as long as physically possible. I mean, when guys retire, they're only in their mid-30s. They're not old dudes. They're just old in the NFL's mindset. But to them, they're not old, so they're going to keep trying to play. Guys don't want to mentor. People have this preconceived notion that, once you hit this age, now you enjoy being a mentor. Bullshit. You enjoy being an NFL player. You enjoy being a starter. That's what these guys are out here to do.
There you go. So you heard it here first, Brendan Albert. All right, so you got a prediction for the season. I've already given mine. I got 1-15. I think the Jets are going to be picking number 1 overall in the 2018 NFL Draft, which will be in Philadelphia, I believe, again.
Fingers crossed, man, because that was freaking awesome. I mean, It was unbelievable the way the city turned out. Everything was fantastic. I'm glad I was able to come back and go to it. It was just so cool to see. Philly deserves it again. For the Jets this season, I'm going to give them 2 wins. I'm going to say they'll split with the Bills, and I say they're going to beat the Browns. But honestly, I have a hard time thinking the Jets are going to win more than 4 games this year. I think 4 games is a realistic ceiling for them.
Well, just from looking at their schedule, the only games I could see them winning, Buffalo, definitely. We had that's a split. We both don't think highly of the Bills this season. I'm trying to find their schedule. Hold on. All right, so you got Jacksonville at home in Week 4. I think the Jaguars are improved from last year. We'll see. At Cleveland. See, that's the problem with the Browns game. They got to go to Cleveland for that game. Not that anyone's going to those games in Cleveland, but in Cleveland. So you got Buffalo's another one. And besides that, I don't know if I see another winnable game. Maybe Miami because it's a divisional opponent. You might know them a little bit. Maybe you beat them at home. I don't know. I like the Chargers this year a little bit, so I don't think they're going to beat them at home.
Yeah.
Other than that, I got nothing. Depending on what you think of Carolina, I think Carolina maybe bounces back a little bit this year. I don't see them being a dumpster fire. I don't see nothing on this schedule. They're not winning in Oakland. They're not beating the Patriots. They're not beating the Falcons. They're not beating Tampa Bay and Tampa Bay. They're not beating the Chiefs. They're not beating Denver. I don't think they're going to New Orleans beating the Saints.
Nope.
So
yeah, I mean,
I got 115.
I'm with you, Adrian. It's hard for me to imagine them winning a ton of games when there's just question marks literally all over their roster. Yeah. So yeah, I'm with you. I think 1 to 4 games is a ceiling for them.
Yeah. All right, that wraps it up here. Actually, we never did sleepers, right? Or break. What is it we did on our last show? What did we do?
Breakout guys and
breakout, and then we got what? Hot seat, right?
Hot seat, yeah. You want to take your first crack, Adrian? Or you want me to give first cracks?
Hot seat player. Let me think.
Right.
I gotta think. Go ahead if you're ready. I'll think about it.
All right, I got 2. So I'm gonna say that the 2 I have, and we kind of talked about both of them, is gonna be Christian Hackenberger and Blair Powell. Hackenberg is in a position to start. Everyone's when you think about the position to be a hot seat, traditionally it means you've had the opportunity, like a Blake Bortles, for example. He's had the opportunity, he's shown nothing, and he's probably on the hot seat to be gone. Mm-hmm. Hackenberg's on the hot seat because the Jets are going to have a quarterback option next year and as a first round pick. And at his age, if the Jets do take a first round quarterback, Hackenberg's never going to be the quarterback for the New York Jets. It means he's going to have to go somewhere else and then beat someone else. So Hackenberg needs to have a really good year this year. I mean, Petty's the same spot. I mean, both of them, you could argue the same thing. I have less faith in Bryce Petty than I do in Christian Hackenberg, and that's still very low. So if Hackenberger wants to be a starter in the NFL, this is the year. He's only got one shot at it. This is it. After that, I don't think he's really going to be a late bloomer in the league. Blair Powell's another guy I kind of said, hey, I don't think he's ever going to be anything more than a committee head. But if he ever wants an opportunity to prove that statement wrong, this is the year to do it, because the Jets are likely either going to move on from him next season and or Forte next season and bring someone in, whether that's through the draft or free agency with that $50 million cap room. I don't see the Jets bringing him back unless he really shows he could do it.
Yeah, the only guy you can really put on the hot seat on the roster is Hackenberg, I believe, and this is the year. I mean, he's got to prove it, and if he doesn't, he's out. I'm not a big Hackenberg guy for sure, especially what I heard last year. I mean, they were talking about how he was like one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, period. Petty, I'm not a Baylor quarterback guy. I mean, those guys don't know how to run routes. They throw all deep balls. And I believe you had a story, right, of they played some tape and Petty didn't know how to
Yeah, I had
what's going on?
I had a guy that I had the opportunity to work for at one point, and he was working in the NFL at this time, and he had the opportunity to interview Bryce Petty before their draft with his NFL team. I'm not gonna share who this guy is. I don't want to put him on blast like that, but he was in a position where his team needed a quarterback when that year was up, and had the opportunity to interview Petty. Interviewed Petty, handed him they call it the Cowboy, which is the remote used to play film, playback, rewind, all that stuff. And Petty looked at it and said, I don't know how to use this. So, I mean, if you have a guy coming out of college, going into the NFL saying, I don't know how to use a film remote, tells me he's not watching film. If he's not watching film, he's got no chance of being a good NFL quarterback.
So they didn't, put the remote in his hand before they drafted him? They did this after they drafted him?
Well, no, here's the thing. He did this. This was going on, Adrian, during the interviews at the NFL Combine.
Wow, and they still drafted him. Okay.
So he opted. So the guy I worked for said, this took him off our draft board. We will not draft him. And then eventually the Jets drafted him.
Yeah.
So that was obviously there's a big reason that you go into the NFL combines and all these interviews are so intense. This is a great example. I mean, I don't blame him. If my quarterback doesn't know how to watch film, no way am I taking him.
Yeah, for sure. Breakout player. I mean, I'll go with Robbie Anderson. I like that one. Do we really consider Nunwa really a breakout player? I kind of think he kind of broke out last year. But Robbie Anderson is a guy that he produced at Temple, and he was kind of an underdog at Temple too. And then he comes to the Jets, and you see the preseason. He's like, all right, all you see him is beating corners deep. He was undrafted. Okay, let's see what he can do during the regular season. And he kept getting opportunities, and he kept putting up numbers, and he still put up numbers. So I think he's a guy to watch. It's tough to pick a sleeper because there's not much on the roster. Maybe another one is Darren Lee. Watch out for him as the linebacker. Now he's getting an opportunity to really get snaps. So I guess those would be the two. Hot seat, I got nothing besides Hackenberg.
It's tough. I mean, the Jets is probably not one of the best teams for us to do the hot seat breakout player. It's very difficult. I like Robbie a lot. Obviously, I know I'm biased because both me and Adrian did have the opportunity to go to Temple when Robbie was there. But Robbie as a undrafted free agent, okay, we always got to remember when you're undrafted, you're going to start as the sixth receiver. Not only made the team, which is usually a big accomplishment right there. In the opportunities he did have in 2016, his rookie year, he put up over 40 receptions, almost 600 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's pretty damn good considering they didn't really have a stable quarterback situation. And he was coming from an undrafted, and at best, to start the year, he was the 4th receiver. He potentially could be the 1 receiver this year. So I would say Robbie's my breakout guy.
There you go. All right. Anything else you want to say before we depart?
That's it. This weekend, we got 2 really good teams. Adrian, I'll let you give the teaser on who we got this weekend.
Yeah, we got the defending world champions. We're going to be talking about the Patriots on Sunday, and we'll get to Brendan's favorite team, the Ravens, on Sunday. So we'll be talking about those 2 teams coming up very, very shortly. So we got the Jets out of the way. This is going to be one of our tougher ones. We're going to have the Browns coming up too. So, we'll get the basement dwellers out of the way hopefully pretty soon.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys.
Yep, absolutely. Niners are going to be coming up too, so that's going to be an ugly one. But that's maybe a week or 2 away. That's Brendan Albert. I'm Adrian Fedke. Stay tuned to the Bitterbirds channel. I'm going to be back in 5 minutes. We're going to be talking some Summer League. Talk about Markelle Fultz. Should he have been playing? What are you going to do come preseason? How much you want to play him? All that good stuff. But that's in a couple minutes. That's Brendan. I'm Adrian. This show is over.